Hello, everyone. So, I want to tell you a story, and it is about a place called Pure Life Ministries. Not mini streams, it's ministries. And it's somewhere that I went out of my own decision, finding them online or knowing about them from a book or something like that. I was still in Illinois and I'd finished like a school semester and I just wanted to go. I wanted to deal with things in my life and just get a real relationship with God and and just focus on that for a while. Excuse me. So I put in a lot of money. In fact, I even paid someone, I think like almost $1,000 when I didn't. This is like when I don't have money, by the way. This is like I'm in debt, like I don't have money as a college student, to take over my apartment, so I could go, so I could just grab whatever I needed to get and move out and put stuff in storage and just go. And I wanted to go. I wanted to be there and not have any, you know, any, worries about things in the world and just go. So when I was there, I had, this is very unlikely, I think, but I had two different counselors because the first counselor I had, and usually people only have one, like, and that's it. But the first counselor I had changed out of being a counselor to being like an administrative person. So I was under him, and that was it. You would meet with him like twice a week or once a week or something like that. I think it was more at first, so it might have been like twice a week at first or something. I can't really remember all the details, but I did like a stack of homework with the time I was there. And I was there more than what the full amount is. Like you can stay there for like 6 months and then go home or whatever and then kind of finish some classes. Or you can stay there a full 9 months and then like graduate and like complete the program and things like that. So, and we're going to get into some sad, dark stuff later on. But when I was first there, it was really inviting. It was really like I was really glad to be there. I went down this trail when I got the chance, and it was just a nice, beautiful nature trail, and there was a cross, and I just cried. I just knelt at the cross and I just cried. And I was just like, this is it. Like I get to, be free from all this garbage I've been dealing with. Like, and by garbage, I mean, gratifying yourself, looking at things on the internet that you shouldn't be looking at, being like basically sexually related addictions that kind of interfere with being the person that you really know you need to be, like being a, just a strong moral person with proper mental and physical capabilities to do what's right in a relationship with God and communication and prayer with God. So things like that. Like basically, I knew that it's like wrong to be in that to do that kind of stuff, and it's sinful basically. So I had thought about this type of stuff my entire life. I mean, I'd been involved in ministry and things like that, and like just being here, just knowing this is what I'm here for. Like I'm here to deal with what's wrong with me. It's not just I'm here to help someone else. I'm here to just, do some cool stuff. No, it was like I'm here sacrificing this stuff or whatever, this time, this money, and I'm establishing being here to just fix what's wrong with me, to overcome these things and to grow. And that made me cry that first day. So you could, I don't know if you could call that a repenting situation right there. And I'm just mentioning that because of something that I'm going to mention later on. And this took me a very, very long time to come out and just tell everyone about this, because my experience there was the most horrific, the most damaging, and the most it was so, I felt like it was so wicked. I can't even begin to describe. But anyway, we'll just stick with the good for now, the good experiences. So the other guys, like the guys going through the program, a lot of them, I really liked being around. I enjoyed them. Some of them chose to go there on their own. Some of them did something they shouldn't have done in their family, and then basically their wife or their church wanted them to go. And then kind of after that, they decided they wanted to go, but it was more because of external pressure. It wasn't something from within their own choices necessarily. So some of them didn't really have the attitude of, the legitimate, they all looked like they had the attitude of, yeah, I'm going to participate, but I don't think they all genuinely had the attitude of, I'm here for the real deal. Like no one, and I didn't have to question that about the people who chose to go there on their own. So that they really wanted to grow. They really wanted to work on some things. So it was a very long 9 months. I mean, we would get up really early, and we'd go to work. And if I hadn't gotten lucky with whatever job that I had there, there's no way I would have made it, because I had to pay off this. I had a really high interest rate credit card that I had to pay off pretty quickly, and that thing needed to go. And if I had worked at some of the other places that these other guys worked at, they worked in like pool supplies, and it was like really strong chemicals and things like that, and it was crazy to hear about. So I'm thankful for that. It's like God was watching over me, taking care of me when I was there. Now, my first counselor, he was kind of clean cut, very kind of like proper, I'd say, in his stature. He liked to just be straightforward, clear, and we didn't necessarily talk about anything deep right away, but he would always have something that would make sense for me to study or look into and work on things. And then eventually he was switching out, and he told our entire group, he said, well, I'm going to go do work on finances and things like that, and I'm not going to be a counselor here anymore, so we're going to switch out. So what happened was, I think on the last day I was talking with him, I talked with him about just kind of like eternal things, because my theological understanding of what I hear at like churches in the Western, in the States where I grew up, is basically eternity is just like basically like time. It keeps ticking and it just keeps going forever, but it just doesn't end. And I think that's probably what most people believe, and when they read the Bible, when they hear about heaven and hell and all this stuff and preachers. And so I had an actual like a formal logical thing. I'm not talking about just like some opinion. I'm not talking about, I had this idea and it probably is just my own opinion or thought. No, this was like actual, like solid, 100% absolute mathematical, formal logical idea. Like there's absolutely zero questioning. It has nothing to do with me as like a person or my opinion or anything like that. It was just like there's no way around it, basically. It's like kind of like working with a mathematical theorem where it doesn't even have anything to do with, the sun being there and then disappearing, because you don't know if that could happen, but you know that 1 + 1 is 2. So, right. So like, because it's self-defined. So it's this problem that I had with basically with just statements that I had heard from preachers and things that people believed about just what they would preach about eternity and well, you deserve to be tortured for all eternity and all this stuff. So I brought that up, I think the last day he was my counselor, and then the other counselor was there listening because he was going to come in and then switch. So then they switched the next week and he became my primary counselor, and then my original counselor was just listening, and then after that I was just with my second counselor. Now my second counselor was this really tall guy who had previously, I think, been into drugs and had been there for like a year and a half, probably at least. And something was, it was not a good, it's not a good experience. It's not something that I really want to remember. But I have to talk about it and I have to explain what happened there. So I would meet with him and I would do everything I was told. I would do all the homeworks and things like that. And I was actually exposed to mercury. And I had, with my first counselor, he actually let me drive back and go get some mercury fillings removed by a special dentist who can do it in such a way that doesn't poison you. So this was affecting my brain and things like that. And I was actually tested to have high levels of mercury due to things from the military. And the military I've never gotten any compensation or anything from the military for that, by the way. But anyway, so he changed a lot of posters around. He really supported, I think, the Voice of the Martyrs organization. He was really into that. He supported them. Now, during winter, when it was I got there before winter. When I was getting up really early, driving down with the guys to get to work, working a full day and then coming back and then having classes and things like that every single day, and then doing like a special chore and things like that, like on Saturday. I think I had a chore that would take like a long 3 hours or something like that. It would just take up like a big chunk of my Saturday, and so it was really hard for me to keep up with like the homeworks on time. And I'm not sure, but it was really, really, really difficult with how much sleep I could tell I needed. It might have been because of the mercury, I'm not sure. I mean, I'd been in the military before, so and I would be on time all the time, getting up really early, so maybe, something was wrong, but like my brain was not, it would actually hurt sometimes in the morning, like something was wrong. And this is really sad. This is really frustrating to talk about, but I remember he was asking me something. He was playing some slow music, and he was kind of acting like I was supposed to, like somehow I was just like breaking through, like I was gonna like cry and just, I gotta repent or something. Like he kept acting like I needed to like repent or something, but I would like, at the same time, the counselors there like said like, okay, once you repent, like I heard it from other students, like their counselor would say like, okay, you did that wrong thing and now you said, you told God about it, you got past it. Okay, now forget about it. It's done. It's paid for. But with this counselor, he didn't think that I believe, like that I was like, that I had like he like somehow believed, I guess, I'm guessing, I have no idea, but I'm guessing he believed that there was some point in the future that I was supposed to like realize like, I've been doing bad things. But I remember clearly, like the first day I was there, I was crying. I was like, this was something that I wanted to deal with. And there was even like 3 days or something where I fasted without telling anyone. I didn't even tell my counselor. I didn't even know I was supposed to. But I asked him again one time. I was just like, because I noticed that he would want me to ask permission for things. So I asked him if I could fast, and he said no. And it was at a time where I really believed that it would have helped me. Like, it would have really been important for me to do that at the time. And he just said no. Like, it was like anything that I felt like I needed to do. It was like you had to learn how to be humble and just accept that no is the answer, or that, like, just be rejected for everything. Like, as if he was supposed to artificially create like this humiliating or humbling experience, which in my opinion, it was just humiliating. It was just hurting me. It wasn't making anything better. And I don't know if he was like trying to pray that I would, come to some special repentance of whatever. I don't know. All I know is I already 100% desired, to to follow, what God wants, like to do the right thing. And so I just kept showing up. I just believed God. I've just been faithful the whole time. And during this one session, he was playing this music, and he's just like, tell me, what is it? Like, what are you hiding or whatever? What's going on? And I mean, the thing that I was thinking about, I had already mentioned to the first counselor, and he was there in the same room. So they both were there. And I think I even said that. I was just like, I think I already talked, about it and everything. And I even prayed. And then, I even got an answer. I got some, it's like God answered me like 2 different ways. It was really cool, actually. I could explain it later. I'm not sure. I guess I might mention what it was. But I just kept there was like a disconnect the entire time he was my counselor, a complete disconnect the entire time. We never, nothing. It's like he always wanted to like artificially get something like out of me, or think that I wasn't repenting or admitting something, or I was keeping a secret or something. I don't know what he was thinking. I have no idea if that was it. That's my best guess. So I do have an idea, but I don't have a conclusive idea to, prove what it actually was. Now, although I kind of do, he kind of made it clear at the end. This is why I'm like almost 100% convinced in it. I don't want to believe that that's the truth, because it's screwed up. It's messed up. It really made me angry, actually. I was just like, this is not right at all. This is really, really bad. Anyway, during that session, he basically increased my homework. He made things harder for me. It was really, really super frustrating. It just made me hurt, and it didn't make me want to spend any more time with God. Like, spending time with God was like this extremely difficult, very painful duty, because it's like I only had so much time, and then it was just like, okay, but you have to spend 15 minutes with God. So I'd go out and I'd be like, okay, I have to pray for like 15 minutes. It's like I have to do it. It's not something you'd want to do or you felt like doing. It's just like, I know I have tons of homework and I'm gonna have to stay up really, really late, and like I'm screwed, but I have to spend this time. It's required. And then I have to spend exactly 15 minutes or more, whatever, so that he doesn't kill me, not literally kill me, but he'll report it to the other counselor, and they'll say, you're not doing good, you're not listening, and all this stuff. So it's like the most difficult thing in the world. And I didn't think that was really right, I guess, because I always wanted to genuinely and sincerely spend time, talking with God and seeking God. And so that was just really hard, really frustrating, and it didn't really seem to help anything. But I mean, and the thing that I really loved about being there, was that it was really difficult for me to stay pure for a lot of times in my life. And when I was there, it was like a good 5 months in a row, and then I think another 5 months in a row that I was just clean from a lot of things, like a lot of garbage. I did kind of screw up around Christmas time, and I hadn't talked with my counselor for like a couple weeks, or like it was right before like I hadn't met with him for like a couple weeks in a row. And then when I finally got a chance to like sit down and talk with him, he was like mad that I hadn't like, told him earlier or something like that. And I don't know, that was frustrating. He had put me on this special task of working with the groundsman who is doing a lot of the mowing and things like that, and I would have to work with him for like a 3.5 hour straight period, and it was a lot. It would take up a lot more time than just doing washing the floor or whatever, cleaning the bathroom that some of the guys that you could do. I really enjoyed being at least like there's this place called the Upper Room. It's like a little smaller, a little older, in the older building. But once I was there, I was just like, I love being here. I love being around these guys up here. It was smaller than most of the other places that you could live, but I really was glad that I was there. It was a blessing. I needed a place like that, a place that was just relaxing, and because I was probably drinking too much coffee at the time or something. I don't know. I might have been hurting myself too for, but I would get really just run out of time, and it would get frustrating. And being able to call home, family on the payphone, that was like something to look forward to. I loved doing that. They were very limited in the time that you could do that, but being able to call parents, siblings, people like that, that was awesome. And being able to go and actually visit like another church, or visit, like a grocery store other than Walmart, like that was like huge, because you didn't get to do that for the longest time. Like you were literally like stuck like it seems like you're like in a prison for like months. And we would get to watch like a movie every Saturday, and it was like, usually the movies were like a documentary about like a missionary or someone like that, or preaching a lot of times. But every other Saturday or so, every couple weeks, we'd get to see an actual like Christian movie instead of just like a preaching. So that was, there were things to look forward to while you're there. Going on that prayer trail, like it's the same exact thing over and over. I mean, it's beautiful. It's outside, it's trees, but at the same time, it kind of gets a little old sometimes, because it's the exact same little trail. It's all right. It's nice that they have that place there. When I left, though, this is the thing that I wanted to talk about, because a lot of I want to remember the place as positive, but when I left, my counselor had told me, like, he basically came up to me and just said, like, oh, I wanted you to graduate, but you don't get to. And he didn't really tell me why. He was just like, unless there's a miracle, then you can graduate. And I was like, okay. Like, and this doesn't make any sense, because like, it seems like what he did to me, I don't want to say this because I don't want to like criticize or condemn someone, but I just feel like what he did to me was like so evil, like so wicked, because like it's like it's like he didn't want me to graduate. It's like he thought that I was like doing something on purpose against him or something. And it really stinks, because when you go to work for like 8-10 hours, whatever it is, and you have to drive to and from work so it's more like 12 hours, and then spend like your entire life at this place that you chose to go and you paid to go there, and you sacrifice like your ability to go get like a really high paying job and a family and things like that. And then the whole time you're there, the preachers are screaming at you like, these counselors sacrifice their lives for you, so you better blah 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 blah. And they're like, preach it literally, like that's what I'm getting preached at all the time, continually, every single day, all the time. Like and they didn't necessarily go there. Like my counselor's dad like made him go. Like he didn't choose to just go on his own. So like after all this, it's like he was like treating me like I was like some presumptuous, like I just like I don't know. And even the head counselor, this is so weird, but I sat down. You're supposed to sit down to pay the head counselor like every week. You have to pay them like your weekly payment or whatever. And he asked me some question or whatever, quizzes me, and I think I answered it correctly too. It's just like does God, like, why did God die for, I don't know what it was. But I think I just gave the correct answer. And I think he said, this was the head counselor, like a pastor there. He said, "Oh, nope. Sounds like you like those liberal churches, the mega church. Sounds like you would go to one of them." Or something. Like there's like a televangelist church that a lot of people that they like criticize a lot and say like that's not a real church. He doesn't preach certain parts of the Bible, And I was just like, what? Like this doesn't make any sense. Like I at the time I didn't respond. I just said, okay, like I'll pray about that. I'll work on that, I guess. But like that didn't make any sense whatsoever. Like I'm totally not supportive of that. Of churches that aren't going to tell you the truth or whatever, and not do the right thing. I don't understand. Like, I really don't know what it is. I have no idea. Maybe they assumed what my political beliefs were and thought I was like a liberal or something, or thought I was like a communist or something, because I remember getting in an argument with someone like really early on, like it was a student, and we were just talking about in some like money or whatever, like economics, and I said like capitalism is not the optimal thing, and we were just arguing back and forth like yeah it is, no, like, yeah, no. He's like, then what is it socialism? And I was like, what? That, I'm thinking like, no, like I didn't say what it was. I just said that it's not optimal. That's all I was saying. I'm not saying that like there's two things like socialism and communism and socialism better. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that capitalism is not the optimal, thing. But then as soon as he said that, he's like, is socialism it then? He says that, right? And before I can respond, before I can say anything, the other students around there are like, okay, let's not argue. Let's not fight. Let's keep it back. Let's not argue. So he might have told his counselor, who then told the other counselors and all that. And so I have no idea. If that's what happened, then, I'm convinced at this point, like, after how I was treated there, and I still have yet to explain what happened, but I bet that Jesus could go through this ministry and they would reject him. Like the counselors and the staff and the pastors, they would just think he's an idiot, and think he's crazy. They literally would reject the person that they preach about and they supposedly are like singing about and pursuing the entire time, 100% of the time at the ministry. And yet I'm convinced that they would, if actual Jesus was there, they would totally call him a blasphemer and reject him, even though the story of Jesus is about how the religious people rejected him. Isn't that crazy? Like, that's what blows my mind. Like, it's so ridiculous. So I'm going to explain what my counselor did. He basically said to me, right? He said, unless there's like a miracle. He says it like in a very specific way. Like, he kind of it's almost like he whispered it in my ear. I'm not even kidding. I don't remember exactly, but he might have came over and just like, unless there's a miracle though, or something. And so I'm like, okay, like, I don't even, this is just what I'm thinking. Like, I'm having a good attitude, but now that I look back, it's just like, okay, like, why would he say that? That just, now that I believe that it's okay for me to question what was going on, this is so ridiculous. So there's another student who came up and he actually like told his counselor that he didn't believe in God. Like, he believed it was just psychology or something. And this is something he told me about. So I knew about all this. I was like, okay, we can pray together and all this stuff. Now, he graduated, and get this, he graduated, he graduated, and I was at his graduation, and he had come in after me, but because I was extended, he was then going to graduate, even though I was still there just as a student. So that's why he was graduating, but he was also newer than me. So he went up there, gave a little speech or whatever, and he didn't talk about like not having, like, not believed in God or whatever, and then changing his mind or something. And my counselor went up and he talked about him. He's just like, I remember this one time where he was really, really scared and he didn't want to talk. So he came in and he said, he told me his secret. He told me the thing, and that was a miracle. So God did a miracle. And I was just like, wait a minute. He phrased that exactly the way that he phrased it when he whispered it in my ear, like, unless there's a miracle or whatever. And he like never talks that way. It was like this particular thing. And I was just like, okay. Like, I wonder if he just thinks that, like, that I'm like hiding something from him, or like not telling him everything, even though I literally had told him the very first day, before he even was like my official counselor, and he was just sitting there listening in. Like, I had already told him like literally the deepest thing I was struggling with. It didn't have anything to do with like sexuality. Like, I even told him something about that like later on, and he just kind of like took it and was just like, okay, well, okay, that happened or whatever. Like, but the deepest thing I was dealing with was like this, this theological thing, I guess. And like, I asked God to show me, because I'm like, I know 100% for a fact. I know that like almost all preachers that I've ever heard about talk about it, they don't understand like the logic behind it, because, and I had laid it out, and I was just like, yeah, but God would understand. So this is something that I prayed and presented to God, because I was just like, if God's gonna work this way, where he knows logic, he knows, like, if I know something's absolutely true, he's gonna see it, even if 100% of all the preachers don't see it. And this isn't, like I said, it's not an opinion thing, it's just a logic thing. So it's just that. My counselor even tried to tell me that God's not logic. It was just like, he's just like, wouldn't you want to just destroy the earth? Like, him and the lead counselor were meeting with me one time, and he's just like, if the earth was evil, wouldn't you just want to destroy it and get rid of it? Like, because that's not, you know what I mean? I think they're saying because that's not what God did. Like, he purposely was being merciful and decided not to destroy it, right? But I said, I don't think that way. Because I'm assuming that they're saying that you destroy it and then you literally torture every single organism on that planet or whatever for like as you would measure time with a clock for like all eternity. Like, you'd never stop the clock. You would just torture them. And my understanding of punishment and discipline was directly related to the outcome, not to the experience. And so there was obviously a different thing between a finite one and something that doesn't end with the outcome, which I got, I prayed about that and then got responses for that in the same day. It was really cool. And this is the thing. Like, I had this feeling that my counselor, like, in a way, it's so weird. It's like I had a feeling that in a way he was like an adversary, but that I didn't have to worry about it because, like, no matter what kind of sneaky stuff he was going to do, even if he was spying on having, talking with other students about what I was doing at work, which I kind of oversaw that, but I wasn't sure if that's what it was. But I was just like, it doesn't matter, because even if he's my adversary, like, God is, like, in control of this. And I decided that, I realized, like, I had to trust, like, what? God's in control of everything. He's watching everything. Like, it doesn't matter if my counselor tries to do something evil. Like, God is going to protect me, and he's going to do what's right. And he's, like, I just trust God in it. So my counselor could literally try to poison me, by putting poison in my food. And, like, somehow it's just, someone else is going to grab the food or something instead. Or I don't know. And then it'll go to the wrong place. And I won't, eat it or something. I don't know. But I just had this sense that, just this overwhelming sense that he was just on my case, like, acting like, he would mention things to me like, oh, so you think you deserve it? Like, what's good or whatever. Like, he would say these things that went completely against. Like, I agree when preachers, like, like, if a preacher was up there and he just, like, reads Job. Like, I love the story of Job, okay? He says, back to my mother's womb, I'll return naked. He doesn't break the rules just because he lost everything. He doesn't curse God and say, well, screw you, God, because you took away everything that I have, okay? There's no Hebrew word that's, like, that you translate to the English deserve. So, like, what does it mean if he thought he deserves to have things? Well, what does that mean? Does that mean, like, for him to be happy, or for him to use those things to further his seed, or for him to use those things to do good for other people? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, the Bible to me made perfect sense. It was logical. But when people preached on the Bible, then they would say all these things and make up all these words, and they all sound the same. They all sound like the same as, like, the Baptist churches and things like that. And it's like, well, none of that's in the Bible. None of that. That's just what everyone preaches. And then they say, we're only preaching the Bible. And it's like, you're only preaching the Bible. But really what I hear is you're only preaching what all the other preachers are preaching. Right? And if you really did preach the Bible, what you would preach about is, like, Melchizedek and, like, Jesus being rejected and being ugly, like, not being a pleasing thing to look at. I'm not kidding. He's like this ugly person. He doesn't look good. Like, the prophecies in Isaiah talk about how he didn't have any seed. He didn't have any children, and no one cared. Like, am I the only one who cares that Jesus didn't have children? Like, I want Jesus to have children. Like, come on. Like, this is the type of stuff that's in the Bible. Like, I'm sitting there reading the Bible. They're making me read the Bible. And there's all this stuff. And then, like, the preachers talk about just stuff that you always hear, like the Baptist churches and things like that. And then they'll say, like, well, communism and liberal or whatever. Or mega churches who are fake and they don't talk about hell. They don't hell. And it's like, okay, like, I don't know. It didn't make any sense because I'm, like, the most conservative person, and it's just like they'll take something that I said and twist it around and act like I'm not. Even though I didn't even said that's what I was. I never said that. That's just not true. So at this point, I've just realized that it can't be right. And nothing that I stated was really complete proof. None of it was really 100% evidence. But there was another counselor that kind of did prove it to me. I'll just say his initials were TJ. Okay. He used to be a tough guy. I don't know how much details I should put, but this guy was, I believe that he was like a sincere guy. But I'm just gonna explain. Sorry, I bumped my computer. I'm just gonna explain like the deal with how they thought there. So I'm gonna explain how their logic. They can't, if they have the attitude of they're doing the right thing and God will lead them to do the right thing and everything like that, that fails because they're trusting that, you know, God's going to make up for like their failures in their logic, but they're not being humble and realizing that they have to make sure that they don't screw up in their logic. So I'm going to explain what was done. So in middle of one of our like prayer meetings or something, I wanted to stand up and say that I thought I had done something wrong, but I wasn't sure that it was wrong. So I said I probably shouldn't have done, you know, X. And I totally 100% meant that. To this day, I don't really remember what it was, but I know that I wasn't really sure it was the wrong thing to do. In fact, I think I was actually thinking it was more likely that it was the right thing to do, not the wrong thing to do. But I wanted to apologize. I wanted to make sure that it was okay. Like I wasn't offending anyone or something. I wanted to ask for forgiveness. So he didn't realize that apparently, because he said, "Don't minimize your sin. Say, I was wrong. Will you forgive me?" Like he basically told me to, in my opinion, what I was thinking was, you're basically telling me to lie, I think, because like I'm not convinced. I'm sincerely not convinced that what I did here was wrong, and he doesn't even know what I'm talking about. He wasn't there. It's not like we argued about whether what I did was wrong or not. He just took what I said, which was admitting something, and then he said, "Oh, you're minimizing it. I can tell you're minimizing it because you said I think it's wrong, or I probably just be a man and admit I'm 100% wrong and it was sin and that's it." Seriously? So that's the thing that really bothered me, because then after that, I'm pretty sure he even told me one time, he's just like, you minimize too much or something like that. And they decide whether you graduate there. And that also decides whether you can work there and help other men, other people. And so I don't even have the option of working with other men who are like me, who are more sensitive, who are more, it probably doesn't matter anyway, because I actually got all this. I prayed about all this and got a list of Bible verses completely independent of my counselor. And I don't even know if he believed in it or anything, but I wanted to start a ministry to help women. And I was inspired by this ministry. It's not like it didn't inspire me at all. It's not like I hated it, but I don't think my counselor believed in it. He's like, you're not able to do something like that or whatever. Like, it didn't make any sense, because like I'm laughing about it now because this tore me apart, and I realized that I have to laugh about it because I can't be like devastated. I can't be like hating them about it, because that really, it had got me convinced that it was like totally wicked. So, that's like total 100% evidence right there. That is enough evidence for me. I don't know if it's 100%, but it's enough evidence that when he said, admit it or whatever, it's just like, wow, okay, so supposedly you standing on stage talking with us, you're being led by God, and yet you're making a mistake. You're incorrectly believing that I'm trying to minimize my sin when I'm not. So you already made a mistake when you're supposedly preaching by the Spirit of God, or teaching us by the Spirit of God. So none of this holds up anymore. None of the counseling, none of the staff there praying for us, none of their communicating with us, none of their preaching to us, none of their little things that they make us sign saying that, hey, we have to, none of that holds up anymore after that, because they've already condemned themselves by making a mistake and then basically claiming that they don't make mistakes. And I even talked with my counselor. I was angry with him about something, about that one time where he increased my workload. And I told him, I feel like I'm angry still about that. Like it bothered me. I just didn't think it was right. And he just said, he was like, if there's anything I ever did, I was wrong. Will you forgive me? And that's what you're supposed to say when you repent. You have to say, I was wrong. Will you forgive me? Which, if you say it like that, like it doesn't really mean that you want to change. Like when I said it, it was like sincerely, oh wow, I actually shouldn't have said that, or I actually shouldn't have like jumped to that conclusion. Or wow, I hurt someone. I don't want to do that again. Like it involves like you changing something or realizing like, oh crap, I need to actually change something. The way he said it, he was not interested at all in hearing any mistake that he made or anything he was thinking that was wrong. He had 0%. He was just like, oh, if I did anything wrong, I was wrong. Will you forgive me? He didn't want to hear anything. He didn't ask me, should I do something differently? Should I do this or that? Zero. None of it. Absolutely none. None of the staff there. Absolutely none. No one wanted to hear anything. No one asked me anything. No one wanted to know any way that the place could improve or anything that went wrong or anything that they should change or anything like that. None. And that place tore me apart. And I think that that's wickedness. That is evil. That is so wrong. That it like disgusted me because I felt like they were like preaching about Jesus, and the Pharisees and all that, and then like being the Pharisees themselves, even though like we joke about like how a teacher can be teaching about the Pharisees while like quoting the exact same thing that they would say. So I gotta tell you, that place is, if you go there, if you went there and they rejected you and they didn't listen to you and things like that, don't worry, because that happened to me. If you wanted to grow as a Christian, if you wanted to, if you didn't graduate or something like that, don't worry. That happened to me. And it took me a while to realize that it wasn't my fault. Like this is the thing. I genuinely believed that like there was some kind of secretive thing where like you had to graduate or whatever to be part of their group, to be in like the quote unquote actual kingdom of God or something. And being told by, there's a guy who would help men in prison, and being told by him, oh, you can't help me. You can't help me because you have to be 100% dedicated to Christ first. Who's your counselor? Like being told that by him just made me realize like that doesn't make any sense. He has no idea if I'm dedicated to Christ or not. He has no idea. He can't just say that I'm not. He can't just say like, oh, you're not dedicated to Christ. It's almost like the only way to like graduate from this place is to like basically tell them like, oh, I never believed in God. But I guess I believe in him now, or something crazy like that. Like the head counselor, I kid you not, like he wanted to like write down, it's like, he's just like, okay, well, I need some kind of like way that you improved as a person. Like, did you, get better? Did you improve, like something relationship with God? Like, he assumed that I did not grow as a person whatsoever unless he could write it down and define it on paper and like it sounds good. Which is really a bunch of garbage. Like that is such trash. Now, if you can prove that someone didn't grow spiritually, okay, there you go. Fine. But saying that you, like, just assuming that someone didn't grow based on your opinion, you know, and then claiming that your opinion is biblical because, oh, well, there's got to be fruit, and I don't see fruit. So who said you're the one who judges fruit? Like they're judging you. They're literally judging your fruit there. They're judging you. They do judge you, whether they claim to not judge you or not. I promise you, what I'm telling you, all the events and everything that I'm talking about are true. So you can decide whether you think that's judging or not. But I mean, come on, judging, right? Deciding whether someone, you know, has grown or this or that. And I literally, like, I had a counselor who, like, my first counselor even, he said, like, we're not as spiritual as we think we are. And, you know, I thought about that for months. He probably didn't realize, like, I've thought about that for a long time. And I just thought it was, like, none of it made sense because I was thinking, well, what if I think I'm 0% spiritual? Right? Like, the least possible spiritual you could be. Okay? Can you be less than the least possible spiritual that you can be? Right? Like, can you? So, like, how can you just tell someone, oh, we're not as spiritual as we think we are, if you don't know how spiritual they think they are? It doesn't make any sense. None of it made sense. And I would get on my knees and I would just pray, like, during, like, these sessions where other people would kind of sit down and pray or whatever. And I'd get on my knees and I'd turn around and I'd just pray on my chair. And I'd be the only one doing that out of all, like, the 90 guys in there. And there was guys who were dealing with dying of cancer and guys dealing with, like, their wives leaving them. So they can't tell me that I didn't take that place seriously. And they can't tell me that I can't go and start a ministry to help women. Can they? So, yeah. Pure Life Ministries. Kind of messed up, if you ask me. I mean, I wanted it to be a good experience. I wanted it to grow. I wanted it to be a good thing. There was a camp that I went to when I was younger, and I worked there. And pretty much most of my experiences there were good. But I did go on this missions trip with a totally different organization. They would train in Florida, and then you'd go to another country. By the time I came back, I was, like, rebellious. But I still got, like, a certificate saying that I'd, like, did a good job there. But, like, I had a couple women, like, counselors, and one guy counselor who was, like, older. And there was some girl, like, teenage girl. Like, I was a teenager at the time, but there's some other teenage girl who didn't know what, like, lust was. And she was, like, acting like I didn't know what it was because I said that I struggled with lust or something. She's like, do you even know what lust is? Like, you don't even know what it is. It was like, it's when you want something you can't have, basically. She's like, no, it's not even it. I was like, that's basically what it is. I mean, you can't really have it without desire. Like, that's basically what it is. And we all know what, you know, kind of desire that is. But, I mean, it's not the reason why I bring that up is it's not the first time I've dealt with basically being in a situation where, like, I'm, like, a rebel. Even in the army, something like that happened where I went to a church and, like, basically got in trouble in the process, but it's another story. But one of the movies they played at Pure Life, like I really liked it because it was about this one missionary who had like this really mean, like I don't know if they were Catholic or what they were. Like some denomination, but there is a missionary, and then his guy who's the head of him was just like mean, like cold-hearted, and kind of changed later on. But it just like opened my heart, like opened my mind to be like, okay, you know what? This is okay. This is not like the end of the world. This is not like you're being an evil person. This is like you're just being you, and you're trying to follow God, and you just happen to have this situation. You happen to have this counselor who doesn't understand anything about you, doesn't understand anything you're going through. Anytime you open your mouth, his perception of you just gets more messed up. He basically hates you. And you might want to argue and be like, no, he didn't hate you. We'll try to argue about that. No, I think he'll claim that he didn't hate me, but his actions kind of proved that he really didn't care. And that's the truth. I mean, that's the truth. I'm telling you the absolute, like, I am telling you guys the truth when I say I genuinely believe if Jesus went through that ministry, they would reject him. Even though they claim to be like sorry and repentant and all that, and they support like how can you believe in Jesus and not realize that the world is so far gone that you can't trust the government? Like the head counselor there like said like you have to like trust the government because that's what the Bible says to do. Well, fine. Do that. Keep doing that even when the government forces you to take the mark of the beast, right? Obviously. Like it does not make any sense. I used to be really angry about my experience there because I saw one friend that I had there who they didn't let him graduate. They just basically said like, oh, you're not like changing enough or something. And then he stayed there like longer. He stayed like as like a grad student or something like that. And then he just disappeared off the face of the planet. I can't find him on Facebook or anything. It's creepy. It's really creepy. In fact, when I left there, I felt really creeped out. Like I had mentioned something about like when it came to like sin or like evil and stuff like that, I had mentioned something about like secret societies one time when I was writing some notes between me and my counselor. One of the counselors that I met with when I was on my exit, like leaving status, like he told me it's just like, whatever you're thinking, it's not right or whatever. And I didn't even know what he was talking about. I was just like, what are you talking? Like 1 + 1 is 2. So that's not right. Like I literally, as a mathematician, I don't try to think of things that could possibly be wrong. And if they could possibly be wrong, I literally think like, oh, maybe this is true, but it could possibly be wrong. So like I was thinking like what am I thinking that isn't true? Because pretty much anything that I think of, I usually question it and actually wonder if it's true, and I ask God to show me if it's true. Oh my goodness. It was the most disturbing, sad experience of my life, and the way they treated me when I was exposed to mercury. In a way, I feel like just saying like, you know, what Jesus says, like they know not what they do. But even their definition of a forgiveness assumes that I want them to be in pain or something like that because of doing something wrong. It's just like, no. I'm a loving person. I would, if I knew, if I knew all it would take is for you to torture me for 1 trillion years to save a ladybug from being tortured for eternity, then of course, because eternity is way longer than 1,000,000,000,000 years. Like, that's the way I think, right? But their definition of eternity has to not be correct, because I have plenty of reason to believe that it's not necessarily like this thing where time as we know it just keeps ticking forward. I believe now, after a lot of experience and a lot of like researching things and things like that, that there's other dimensions than what we call space-time. Our 3 dimensions of time, 3 dimensions of space, and then 1 dimension of time, that kind of stretches when it comes to light. And by the way, remember, light was the first thing created, right? It sounds to so many scientists like creation is such a silly myth, but if you think about it, light was created on the first day, right? And we finally learn about what light actually is, and we realize that everything in space and time is like branching off of this thing that we call light. Like, the shape of space-time is like based on what we call the speed of light, which is so crazy. It's like so cool to think about. So anyway, that's just awesome. And I'm pretty sure there's some Jewish people who read deep into this stuff, some Jewish people who study the Torah and things like that, and know that there's something really interesting there when it comes to like our base reality, like quantum physics. Like, I'm talking the real deal. And like, it's not a fairy tale, it's not a joke, it's the real deal. So I think that's awesome. And if every single counselor and every single preacher and everyone at Pure Life Ministries just 100% rejects me, I've decided not to believe that I'm just like this liberal, evil sinner person who wants to run away from God. Like, I've just chosen like that's their thinking process. That's the way they think. And it has absolutely nothing to do with like the way I think. It doesn't define me. It doesn't have anything to do with what I like. I don't listen to these televangelists or anything, even though they like basically claimed that I did. I don't think that way. And if they want to reject and not learn from me, because they make you sign this document that says like, oh, I'm here just as a student. I'm here to learn spiritual things. I'm not here to give you, to teach anyone or whatever. So they had zero interest in learning anything from me. Like, there was I kid you not, one of the nicest, humblest guys working there on staff. Like, the nicest, humblest, like, he used to be a pastor. He said, no one else is going to be wanting to be pure. That is so not true. I already knew about this community online. It's called NoFap. I kid you not, that's what it's called. It's called NoFap. They want to get rid of doing these sexually related things. They want to stop being addicted to using the internet and things like that. These are not necessarily even, Christians. Some of them are. But they're... What do you mean there's no one else wanting to... They're there. Come on. That doesn't make any sense. So I believe that if God went there, they would reject him. And I wish that would absolutely break Steve Gallagher's heart. I wish he would hear me say this, and I wish that he would believe me, and it would crush the crap out of his heart. That's what I wish would happen. I wish that he would freaking not stop crying, literally, not even for 1 second, for like a month straight over me saying all this. Like that, it sounds harsh, but like that, like would make me happy, because they have no idea they have absolutely no idea the way I feel about that place and what I've seen and what I've experienced there. you could break all their hearts, and I don't even know if they would. They act like they broke that, like their heart's broken all the time. They literally preach and like cry, being like, "Oh, Jesus, like save me. I was so evil." That's how they preach. That's how they think. They think that they know everything already, that they have like the gospel or whatever. They figured it out. Well, who's Melchizedek then? Well, what about every jot and tittle then, huh? Every jot and tittle. Not, oh, there is this jot and tittle that says believe or whatever. No, I said, what about every single jot and tittle? Have you explained all of them? Every last Hebrew character means something. Okay? Nobody talks like that except a mathematician, by the way. Have you ever noticed that? You ever notice that, like, when, a little bug in a computer program, even in certain computer programs can bypass that. But when you're talking about, like, in what types of situations does the tiniest error matter absolutely, right? What kinds of situations where if you don't put a dot on an I and it's a different letter, then the entire meaning of everything completely turns on its head? Think about it. It's not like this type of situation doesn't exist. It does. I mean, if you stick to the truth, just always stick to the truth, no matter what it is, no matter how ridiculous it is, no matter how opposite of like 99.9% of everyone around you says, you're ridiculous. That's obviously not the case. I don't care. Stick with the dang truth. I don't care if they're all preachers and they're all preaching that they're preaching the truth and that you need to stick to the truth. And then they say you're wrong. You stick to the truth. That's what you do. So that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I have done, and that's what I'm doing. I'm just going to stick to the truth. Get to the bottom of everything. And you might not be the one to look in every hole, but if it's your hole, get to the bottom of it. So appreciate it. Anyone who listened this long and put up with listening to all this stuff and learned anything, you might still decide you want to go. You might not have the bad experience I had. I'm sure most people don't have that bad of an experience. Most people don't have the exact same counselor that I had. Most people aren't dealing with Mercury and things like that. Most people don't have to learn the same lessons that God has for them to learn at the particular time in their life. So I don't think I'm in the place to really like criticize or anything. Like, I felt like I was supposed to be this prophet that totally just turns the freaking entire ministry there upside down. But the thing is, they were my authority at the time. So, and I didn't know if that's what God wanted me to do, but that's what I felt like doing. I felt like literally yelling at people in middle of a lecture, in middle of preaching. I felt like standing up and calling them out and speaking kind of like the prophets would speak. That's what I felt like doing. And I'm going to hold that back, even though, if it's the Spirit of God, like, you still want to be humble, right? And if the Spirit of God wants to speak, I don't know if it's possible to just keep him from speaking in that type of situation. But, I guess I prayed that God would send someone who has the authority, or someone who knows that they're supposed to say something. You know, I might have been a coward too when I left there, because I almost felt like someone was trying to kill me or something. Like, I might have been a little paranoid. I don't know what that, don't worry about what that means. Like, oh, Tim's going mental. Like, okay, I dealt with Mercury and all that, and I was in a freaking place that a lot of people think that it's a cult, and a lot of people don't know a lot about that place. So just cut me some slack. But and I was thinking about a lot of weird things, crazy things about what my counselor said about, thinking that graduation meant something more, like they keep a secret from you or something until you graduate or something like that, But those were all thoughts that came for a reason. They were all coming out of, there was reasons for them. It's not like I just think that way, without reason. There's definitely reasons for all those ways that I thought. So that was that. That was a couple of years ago. That was good, like almost 3 years ago now. And I haven't really. I would drive trucks for 9 months and yell and scream and kind of act like I was gonna explain something to someone or whatever, and I couldn't feel better about it at any time whatsoever. I always was frustrated with what happened there, with what I saw, with what I experienced, and it was very negative. Very negative. But there's a reason that I should share it too. Like, even if I'm not, my attitude isn't the best or whatever, I should share this. Wow, it's turning into a 6 gigabyte file. All right. Well, that was very long, but I'm glad that I spoke for basically an hour and 12 minutes. And hopefully something good comes from this. I don't know what it'll make people think of me. Maybe people just think I'm a jerk or think that I shouldn't care about it or whatever. I don't care. I just feel like it was an experience that for whatever reason I need to talk about it, and I want people to hear about it and think about it and pray about it and whatever. They need to know for some reason. There's certain people out there that probably just for whatever reason they need to see this video. And it's good enough for me. If there's someone out there that needs to see this video, that's good enough for me. Alright, guys. If you watch this and you like my calculator programming videos, sorry that I haven't made them in a while. I've been wanting to do an Ackerman function on the app that I had made, but anyway. Talk to you guys later. Bye.